Welcome into Cherry Picking Fantasy Hockey. We went over the fantasy hockey rankings last show, and today we're going to be looking at some sleepers to target in the later rounds. We're looking at guys about the 10th round and after that as well. Obviously the easier guys to take are in the top 50. Everyone knows those guys, but there will be some guys, especially the last guy I'm going to mention, that are going to be huge for your guys' fantasy teams this year. Guys that I like to target, obviously well-rounded players, and the guys that are going in the later rounds are some guys you could take advantage of. So the first guy I'm looking at, he's kind of on the bubble of being a sleeper, is Miro Heiskanen. His ADP is just around 100 right now. Looking at his season last year, played 70 games. He had 36 points. But one of the main reasons why I really like Heiskanen this year compared to years prior to this is the coach coming in. Peter DeBoer coming in for the Dallas Stars, starting as the new head coach here. He loves puck-moving defensemen. We've seen it when his time in San Jose and in Vegas with Brent Burns and Shea Theodore. He loves to work the offense through puck-moving defensemen. The second reason is John Klingberg's departure to Anaheim. I think this really will open up Heiskanen's opportunities here. Heiskanen already had a 41% share of possible ice time, and I think his responsibilities will only increase at this point. And to this point in his career, Heiskanen has kind of been one of those players that's been a better real-life hockey player than a fantasy hockey player. But I think this is finally going to be his breakout season. He's already 4 years into the league, and he's only 23. The breakout age is usually around 24 to 26. So I think he's in a great spot. And if you look at Brent Burns' time when he was under DeBoer, he had his 4 best seasons in that time span. He was averaging 75 points per season in the 4 years that DeBoer was coaching in San Jose. So I really like Heiskanen at his current ADP. There's guys going before him like Noah Dobson, Dahlin, and Pietrangelo. I feel like Heiskanen can definitely finish ahead of those guys in fantasy. The next guy I'm going to be looking at, going a little bit later in rounds, his ADP is 159 right now. He's on the Kings. It's Adrian Kempe. One of the reasons I do like Kempe, first of all, he plays both wings, and with Fiala coming in, you can slot him either as a left winger or a right winger. I think that's really important, and I think this is going to be Kempe's year. He had a weird season last year in terms of just not a lot of people were talking about him. He scored 35 goals. He had only 19 assists, but I think this year playing on a line, again with Kopitar and now Kevin Fiala, I think this line's going to be one of the best lines in hockey. The LA Kings are really starting to move as well, so I think if he continues to play on the first power play and even gets his shots on the penalty kill like he did last year, I think he's a really good option. For a guy who only had 35 goals, we saw his expected goals rate was 25th in the league and highest on the Kings. So I feel like this year going into a season where the Kings are expected to do a lot better, he'll be great. And in the double-digit rounds, there's a guy that's averaging 2.24 points per 60 minutes last season. That's an absolute steal. So this is definitely a guy I'm targeting. Would take him a little earlier than his current ADP as well. So look out for Adrian Kempe in your drafts. Another guy that I'm looking at, maybe last year was considered his breakout season, but for whatever reason, he's still going really late in drafts. Double-digit rounds as well. Roope Hintz, center on the Dallas Stars. He was the first-line center last year with Jason Robertson and Joe Pavelski, and this was arguably one of the better lines in hockey. Some people might not remember this, but they had the second highest expected goals rate, only behind that line in Calgary with Tkachuk and Gaudreau. So that's definitely something to note. I think Roope Hintz will take another step forward this year. Last year, one of the reasons why he had a higher point total was his shots per game. He went from 6.7 to almost 9 shots per game last year, which is a huge jump. And I think just a little bit more familiarity and a new coach as well will definitely help him moving forward. So I really like Roope Hintz. And then one other guy that I'd love to talk about too, Tage Thompson. This guy, I was all over this guy last year. And for whatever reason, no one's really talking about him again this year. He started off a little slow, but his last 48 games were actually insane. Over that final stretch, he was tied with Ovechkin and Stamkos with 28 goals and 41st in points with 50. His shooting percentage is really high, which is maybe a little concerning because it's hard to sustain that. But even if his shooting percentage drops from 17 to 15, I think he'll still be able to produce. One thing to note, I think there'll be a little bit better chance for him to increase his assists this year. Considering he had just 6 power play assists, that's really low, but he's usually just the guy that they're targeting on the power play to shoot the puck. This year, obviously, Buffalo is continuing to develop. They've got some really good young guys that are going to be playing in their system. So I think he'll get a little bit better of a chance. And he just signed a 7-year contract extension. So I think Don Granato and this organization is really investing in Tage Thompson. So if you can get this guy in the 12th round, which is crazy, I think his I wouldn't say his floor, but it's a good chance that he scores 80 points. There's a guy who's lived in that realm pretty much his whole career, and that's Sebastian Aho, and he's going in the 3rd round. So I think taking a guy like Tage Thompson in those later rounds would be very valuable for your fantasy hockey squad this year. The last guy I want to talk about, this guy is going near the end of your drafts, probably one of the last players you'll be able to take. His current ADP is around 170 to 175, and that's Sean Durzi. I love this kid. He's been unreal throughout his entire career from the OHL, even in the AHL last year before he got called up to the Kings. He had 16 points in 13 games. So for a defenseman, that's pretty crazy. He's only 24 years old, turning 25 this year. He had 3 goals and 27 points last year with 74 hits, 119 shots, and 121 block shots. If you put that over an 82-game span, that's 35 points, 95 hits, 152 shots, and 155 block shots. That's definitely higher in terms of value when you're looking at defensemen going in the 10th round, 9th round, and even 8th round. Like that, even looking at Miro Heiskanen's numbers last year, that was pretty on par with what he had. We saw an increase in minutes and responsibility, and that was pretty evident in the playoffs. He was averaging over 21 minutes per game. And now Drew Doughty comes back, and I actually think this is probably a good thing for him in terms of defensive burden. Won't fall on him as much. I think it'll give him better matchups playing on the second pair. And then I mentioned it before, but this guy in the OHL, his last 2 seasons, he was averaging a point per game. For a defenseman, only the top-tier defensemen really in the OHL are able to average a point per game. And then in their NHL careers, it's usually obviously a good sign. So I think this LA team, like I mentioned before with Adrian Kempe, will take another step forward this year as Todd McClellan gets this group ready. I think they'll be a playoff team, and I think he's an absolute steal in the 16th or 17th round. And who knows, in some leagues he might even go undrafted, so you could be able to pick him up. Those are my 5 sleepers to start your fantasy hockey season this year. Guys, be sure to subscribe. The link will be in the bio. Join our Discord. Obviously, I'll be continue to give out more fantasy hockey advice as the season approaches. So love to hear your comments on what sleepers you guys are targeting this year, and we'll see you next time.